Welcome back to CNN Special Coverage. I'm Brianna Keeler, and we're discussing this. Tapes or no tapes? President Trump gave a vague answer to whether or not he actually has recordings of his conversations with former FBI Director James Comey, something he hinted at on Twitter a long time ago. All he said was that we can expect to see the tapes, quote, maybe sometime in the near future. I want to bring in David Drucker, our CNN political analyst and senior congressional correspondent with the Washington Examiner, and also Eric O'Neill. He's a former FBI counterintelligence operative. Okay, where do you fall on the issue of tapes? I'm curious what both of you think. Do you think there are tapes?
I don't think there's tapes.
Why?
Trump sounded very uncertain whether there were tapes. It sounded like one of those things that he throws out there, which he does. I would think that he would know if he were being recorded when he's in a conversation with one person alone in a room.
Like, is this something he throws out there, like the wiretapping of Trump Tower,
well,
where maybe it wasn't so literal in what he meant?
It's the Trump id, right? So in the moment in which he suggested there might be tapes some, I guess, months back now,
yeah,
it's the type of thing he would do almost as a way to sort of build up this idea of what he's claiming happened. But when you have James Comey sit there in front of the entire country under oath and say, Lordy, I hope there are tapes, it just strikes me that that's either the biggest bluff ever or there aren't tapes, because if they are, number one, they don't belong to President Trump. They belong to the government, which post-Nixon and Watergate, that is a change in terms of who these tapes would belong to, which means eventually they get into the hands of the public. Or, you know, or he has tapes. I don't think he does.
I lean towards I don't think he does. Of course, we don't know. We'd like to find out. And it's only been a month, actually, since that tweet. It feels like it's been a year, but I will say that. The politics of this, you're watching how Republicans are feeling on Capitol Hill. This is a tough spot for them.
It really is. And, you know, watching the Comey hearing, I thought it was really interesting how Republican senators asked very good questions. Some of them were tough. But a lot of them were meant to sort of establish that the president didn't do anything illegal. And I think that when Republicans on the Hill look at this, they realize, and I think this is true, that if Trump goes down, if Trump continues to have all sorts of trouble, they have trouble because it's their party. And that means their agenda is in trouble. And so while publicly what you're seeing is a pretty good front of, hey, we don't think the president did anything wrong, and he's new to government and all these different lines they use, privately, they're frustrated, annoyed, and some of them are very, very worried.
There was something, Eric, that stood out to you during this hearing. I mean, we were focused, obviously, so much on a number of things that we've heard over and over from Jim Comey, but it was what he said about the Russian government's role in meddling in the election that stood out to you.
Right. I think it's
because what did he say that was different? Right
in the beginning, with Chairman Burr's first questions, he came out and unequivocally stated that it was the Russians who sought to interfere in our election. It was the Russians who sought to interfere in our voting, and it was the Russian government that was behind it. Which, you know, that's the FBI director calling Vladimir Putin a liar. Because in the last couple of weeks, Putin has denied all of these things and tried to offset it to some sort of patriotic hacking groups. But we know that's not true. We know it was the Russians that were behind this.
I spoke with a member of Congress, David, who said, of course, President Trump knows the Russians were behind this.
And this is what Republicans try to do. And I think Tom Cotton, the senator from Arkansas, Republican, is actually the best at it. So anytime Trump is sort of walking the line on something, he'll put out a statement that articulates in a very sort of good way from his point of view what Trump really means, and of course Trump understands what he's talking about. Republicans understand the threat from Russia, and they have never, it's one area where they've never really been willing to acquiesce to the president's position. But I don't think the president has ever expressed in certain and unequivocal terms that Russia meddled, that Russia is an adversary, and that they needed to be treated as such. And even yesterday during the news conference with the Romanian president, the reaffirmation of Article 5 was important, it was newsworthy, and it matters. But it was interesting how he sidestepped the issue of whether Russia is a threat to NATO.
And he does that over and over, Eric. Certainly this idea of you see him next to one of his counterparts who is accepting what happened with Russia, and it stands in contrast that we don't hear that definitive acknowledgement of that from the president. From your perspective, having been in the FBI, what does that do when investigators who are just steeped in this. This is what they're doing day in, day out, and the president doesn't acknowledge this very clear fact.
Well, when you're investigating, you're so focused on the investigation, and it doesn't help when the leadership isn't backing what you're trying to do. But I can say, look, cybersecurity is critical to the nation, and the FBI is investigating what happened with the Russians, how they were able to influence. We know a lot about it, but they're going to continue doing it no matter what the political leaders, Comey, Trump, say.
Do you think that the FBI has a handle on this? Because obviously the concern is, what does this mean for elections ahead?
I think that the FBI truly does have a handle on it. We're incredibly good at these investigations, delving into it, understanding the cybersecurity implications. But the critical issue here is not just looking backward at what happened, but looking forward at the next attack. Because I can tell you with complete certainty that Russia is already planning their next attack. And we need to be ready for it.
And I think that questions need to be asked both of the administration and Republicans in Congress, because they run the place. What are you doing from a legislative and policy standpoint to protect against this? I think the president continues to miss a huge opportunity here to say, all of this happened under my predecessor. It's not going to happen on my watch. Here's what we're going to do about it, because it is a serious threat. But it seems as though he is so concerned about the idea that Russia meddled undermines his legitimacy that he won't go there.
Yes, it's fascinating. David, Eric, thank you so much. Great conversation with both of you. We're going to